Whew, another day, another page. I think you're going to be quite happy with your progress today. So we've already gone over yosh. Let's go ahead and go over our next word, ko. The funny thing about this pattern here, this is going to be part of our ko so ado. So ko, so, aso, and do. Don't worry too much about what's going on here with the member. This is something we'll talk about a little bit later. But for the most part, if and the whatever ending it is don't really mesh together for whatever reason, then and so kind of work together to pick up the slack, right? Don't worry about it too much. We'll get into it later. But these, along with the na endings, kind of mean almost the exact same thing. So ko and kona are similar, sol and sona are similar, so on and so forth, right? So if you need to think of them in a different way, you can think of kona as being like this and ko as being, drum roll please, this way. Okay, so we've got ko, the shi and te here are going to be suru in its te form. We've gone over yowaru, we've gone over seru, we've gone over the te form here. Let's go ahead and talk about our next verb ender, oku. So the word oku on its own is basically to put in place. When you talk about this with like a noun, it's like to set something on top of something or to put something where it belongs. But when you use this as a verb ender, this is talking about doing something in preparation for something else. So for example, I've used this word in a few examples before. Kau means to buy something. If I wanted to buy something in preparation for something else, let's say, for example, there's a party going on later and I want to buy drinks for the party. Drinks would be nomi, mono. And to buy them, I would use the o particle. So nomi mono o kau would be to buy drinks. Now, if I wanted to say that I was buying drinks in preparation for something else, first I would need the te form. Kau becomes katte, and then oku. This is another very common usage of the te form. It allows you to attach more verbs onto the first verb. Basically, this is a way of adding even more endings onto a conjugated verb. So, nomimono wo katte oku is like to buy in preparation for something, or to buy drinks in preparation for the party or whatever event it is that I have in the future. Usually the context of what I'm doing it for is established long before this. So the ending te oku means to do in preparation. Kind of a long thing to memorize it as. Just trying to remember that te oku when you have it on the end of a verb. It means that you're doing it first to set up for something else. Of course, here we also have oku in its te form. You may notice that oku ends in ku. So, of course, its past tense would be te oita. And because it's in te form, it's te oite. So, kore is very basic. The re enders are basically just using whatever ko so do normally do, but like as a complete word. So, kore means this. Sore means that. Are means that over there, and dore means which. Alrighty, look at us. Only a few minutes in, and we already get to translate our first panel. So, as always, pause the video if you need to. Think back on the things that you've learned so far. I will see you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, literal translation. Okay, obviously, for the word yosh, like just getting something out there really quick to show that you're getting prepared or hyped for something. Do it like this, ko shite, so do like this or do in this way. Yowarasete is obviously to get it weak or to make it weak. I suppose you could also put make it weak here if you want it to be even more literal, but I'm going to keep it the way I have it here because I think it sounds better. And then once you've done that, throw this. He doesn't specify that he's throwing a Pokeball. He says throw this. That's something that obviously I will clean up in the other translations. But for this one here, he says this, so I kept it this. Something important you may have noticed is I don't have anything that really shows oite or the te oite sound here. That's because, I mean, in English, we don't really say anything that it sounds that snappy when we're doing something in preparation for something else. Like if I'm actually going to buy drinks for a party, I'm usually just going to do that and then afterwards say like, hey, I bought some drinks or I got some drinks for tonight. You know, I specify what I'm actually getting it for. I don't have something like really quick and snappy that would say like, hey, I got drinks put in place. We really just don't do that in English. So I went ahead and left it out of here because I don't think there is a good English translation that gets just that point across. Okay, number 2, cleaned up version. Switched out okay with all right. To be honest, I think I like okay a lot better here, but this is another potential thing you could translate it as, I suppose. After you do this is the koshite, and then and get it weak. I still have the get it weak there because I still think that sounds the best here. And then afterwards, we say throw one of these. Again, that's just a very clean way of saying this rather than throw this. Obviously, he's just like throwing one Pokeball that he probably has multiple of, so I think this works just fine. Finally, we get to the rewrite. I went ahead and just replaced Yosh with just a brand new thing, just him laughing, haha. And then, you know, once you get it nice and weak, so this is basically getting across the idea that you have to weaken the Pokemon first. It takes out the koshite bit of it a little bit, but again, once I take that koshite out, I can play around with that space and give Red a little bit more personality here. Once you get it nice and weak, that kind of shows how confident he is and how like he's teaching in this case. Throw the ball. I'm being specific about what he's throwing instead of being more, I don't know, loosey-goosey, just saying this or one of these. I'm actually being specific about what he's throwing because he's already said that he's going to throw a ball, and we can clearly see that it's a ball in the picture. I think it's totally fine to use ball in the translation. That is yet another page down. Let's go ahead and keep the ball rolling. Do you get it? Do you get it? All right, so Red's thing worked. We've got ourselves a brand new Pokemon here. Of course, he holds the ball up and starts with heh heh heh. I shouldn't have to explain this one. Just like ha ha ha, this is yet more laughter. It's just a different kind of laughter, but laughter nonetheless. We've already gone over the Pokemon's name, so next we have Itadaku. So another Japanese meme word that you've probably heard a lot is itadakimasu. That's where the word itadaku comes in. So itadaku means to accept something in a humble way. So it's like you're taking something, you're accepting something, but you're also really grateful to have the thing that you're taking. Like you're taking something, but you're acknowledging that you're really happy to have the thing that you're being offered. What we have here, though, is an ending that we need to go over really quick. This is what we call the noun ending. Some people also call this moss stem. I just don't like that name. I think that's really silly. Like, yeah, you do use this when you're making moss form, but you also use it for tie form, and you use it for a couple of other forms too. So I think it's really, really silly. We're going to call it the noun ending form here. So you might think it's kind of weird to have it like this, but really there's no easy like ending thing that I can give you. Here's how noun form works. So a fun thing about Japanese is a word can turn into a different type of word if you manipulate it in some way. In this case, we have what I call noun form, because when you have a word in this form, it starts to act like a noun within a sentence, meaning it can do things like take particles, use da and des, and all kinds of other benefits that nouns get that verbs and adjectives normally don't get. How do you make the noun form? It's very, very simple. No mu. You're going to shift to whatever the I ending thing is. So no mi, sa shi, ta chi, no ni, so on and so forth. Whatever the character is, just shift to the I member of that family, or the E sound in that family. Taberu, very strange one. You drop the ru and then nothing else. That's right. When you have a group 2 verb, you get rid of the ru, and then it just doesn't have an ending. And if it looks like this, then it's in what we call its noun form and can be used with noun endings within a sentence. You don't have to worry too much about it right now. I know that your mind is probably thinking of all kinds of weird possibilities right now. There are rules for how you actually do this, and it's not something very common that you're going to see all the time. So just know that it can do that and, be aware of it. You don't have to worry too much about it right now, though. Suda is going to do its thing and become she. And again, that's it. You're not actually going to add an ending, which is why we don't have an ending up here. Once you've changed this into its moss stem form, then it's done. And then these ones, you just take off their endings like halfway through a conjugation, and you can use them within a sentence like a noun. Whoa, another panel already. We are really speeding through it today. Well, as always, take a moment, translate the panel. See you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Literal translation, of course, he is something that we show laughter in English with too, so no reason to change that up. I accept this Nidorino. I really don't like this. One of the reasons that I hate doing like literal translations and why things need to be cleaned up. This is basically exactly what it's saying, and technically it does make sense in English, but just kind of like the least natural possible way you could say this in English. Cleaned up version. Kept the heh heh heh. Think that's totally fine. When you're doing noun form, it often gets translated with the ing form of whatever verb that you're talking about, and accepting something and taking something are roughly the same concept when you're talking about itadaku. So taking, I think, is totally fine here. Adding the context of I'll be makes this a little bit cleaner. I like this version a lot better than the straight up literal one. Finally, for the rewrite, I wanted to do something with this heh heh heh. I think it's totally fine to keep it that way, but I went ahead and replaced it with yes. Like maybe something that he would yell if he was excited about accomplishing something. I got myself a Nidorino. Again, I'm trying to sort of channel the old 90s anime and try and think of something that somebody from like an old cartoon would say. I got myself a Pokemon is, I think, totally fine here. I don't like this as much as just the literal translations that we did before this, but I think this totally works too if you wanted to, again, sort of show Red's personality a bit. This word here is going to be sugoi. This is another one that you've probably heard before. Sugoi is kind of like amazing. It can be other things too. It's basically when you're like in awe of something. It can be amazing. It can be incredible. When kids say it, it can be cool or like super neat or whatever the kids say. All the kids say super neat. I can't stop kids from saying super neat. But basically it's like something along the lines of like cool or incredible or amazing. Speaking of being in awe, we have an adjective ender this time, this being the ending. So the way this ending works is it's basically to show that like you are so flabbergasted or blown away by how insert adjective here something is that you can't even complete the word. That's how dumbstruck you are by how much it is. So for example, for amazing, here's how it works. You have sugoi. The I on the end is the part that you normally change during conjugation. So here, the go here is going to be changed into whatever its ender is. Think of it like shifting with group 1 verbs. This part here is going to shift to its member. So ge, and then the e sound will also be replaced with and that's how we get it. So another word would be something like takai. Gone over this word a few times. It means expensive, But what if you saw something that was unbelievably expensive, right? So you go to a restaurant thinking that you're going to get yourself a bowl of ramen, and that bowl of ramen costs like $85, right? Not only is it expensive, takai, it is going to be take. So the ka gets replaced with ke because that's its e member, and then we add another e here to elongate it, and it's like holy moly, that's expensive, or geez, that is expensive. Those are the kinds of feelings that it's given off. So here, suge is like, oh, that's so cool, or wow, that's absolutely amazing. All right, next bubble, we're starting with the word sasaga. This is a word that you're going to hear a ton in Japanese, but explaining it can be a little bit complicated. Sasaga basically means as expected. So the word sasaga is basically what you say to somebody who has accomplished something, but you want to let them know that it's like you were expecting them to succeed because of how amazing they are in the first place, right? So if there's somebody who's like really smart and they say something really smart, you say, oh, sasaga, to basically say like, oh, that thing you said was really smart. And because you're really smart, I expected you to say something really smart, and then you did, right? Another probably cleaner example is, let's say there's like a really, really good baseball player, right? And the bases are loaded, and he gets out there and he knocks it out of the park and gets his team a home run, scores all 4 of the goal units or whatever they do in baseball. And then when he rounds the last one, his teammates come and say, "Sasuga," like, okay, you did that amazing thing that we all knew you were capable of doing. That is basically what Sasuga is. It's kind of like congratulating somebody and saying great or good job, but it's got even more energy behind it because you're basically saying that even though they did great, you always knew that they could do a great job at whatever it is they did. Okay, I think we got one more proper noun to get out of the way here. Probably the most important one, if I'm being honest. Reddo. So if you haven't guessed yet, reddo means red. And it just so happens to be the name of our cheeky little protagonist here. Look at that smile. How could you possibly not think this is one of the greatest anime characters of all time? I love this guy. This guy's the best. You guys are going to fall in love with him just like I did as we get further into this. Just you wait and see. One more panel for the road. Take a moment to pause the video, come up with your own translation, and I'll see you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, literal translation, of course, suge is so amazing, right? Not just amazing, that would be sugoi. Suge, so amazing. Sasuga redo da, as expected of red, right? Because we have is and we have red. It's red, so it's expected. As expected of red. Okay, cleaned up a little bit here. I think cool is a bit more natural here. Obviously, if it's a bunch of kids, I think kids saying cool makes more sense than saying amazing necessarily. So, tsuge, that's so cool. Sasuga redo da. The sasuga here, great work. Obviously, if you're congratulating somebody on what a good job they're doing, saying great work totally works here. And then just saying red. Because this kid seems to be like looking directly at red, I think I feel comfortable having them address red. I can't even tell if it's a boy or a girl, if I'm being honest. Having them address red directly, I think totally works here. Although I'm a little on the fence about something like this because I think it's more natural to think that this kid is more like talking to the rest of the kids about how great this was, but it could be either way, honestly. I think either translation gets the point across that they're just blown away by how cool red is. And finally, for the rewrite here, As always, I took a little bit of liberties here. So for tsuge, I've got you really did it. I think this is appropriate if you keep in mind the last 2 pages, since these kids have. It's implied that they've been trying for a long time now to capture this Pokemon, and then Red comes in and does it in a few seconds. Him being more blown away with the fact that Red was able to do it, I think is totally viable here. And then having this other kid respond with, well, duh, it's Red we're talking about. I don't think this would ever get past an editor. If I'm being real, I think this would need to be shortened a lot, and I think some things about it would need to be cleaned up a bit. But I like the idea of somebody pointing out, like, oh, you shouldn't be that impressed because this is Red we're talking about, and Red always does it, kind of having something with that emotion behind it. So, well, duh, I really love that part if I could keep it. And then it's Red we're talking about, implying that Red always pulls this kind of thing off. I'm going to be real with you guys. These episodes are going quite a lot faster than I thought they would. I'm actually pretty proud of myself for not making 1.5 to 2 hour videos, which, if you know me from other places, is something I tend to do. I digress, though. Not going to make a super long outro to prove myself wrong here or anything. As always, do the YouTube things. Happy studying, and I will catch you in the next one.